The Soldier, Season of Sunlight, Year 1. Ruslana watched her opponent cautiously. The other woman was laying on the ground, breathing shallowly, clutching the red gash in her side with a confused expression. It was understandable. No one expects to get into a fight, and no one expects to lose. Even fewer expect to die from something so stupid.
"Are you all right?"
Ruslana asked. Even as she said it, the words sounded ridiculous.
"Yeah. I think. I can't feel my side, but I..."
Moments before, they had been fighting, and moments before that, arguing over rationing. And moments before that, they had been friends. Ruslana woke with a start, awash with sweat. She had instinctively reached for a weapon. That wasn't there. Right. They weren't in the yards, and there wasn't an immediate threat. Then why did you wake up? Years of heightened awareness and chemically augmented training hadn't done much to stop her sense of paranoia, but neither had they proven poor guides. Ruslana cautiously got to her feet, and took stock of her situation. Ah, that would be it. Where Kalimir had been sleeping, there was only an empty indentation in the earth. Ruslana took several deep breaths, and forced herself not to go running into the jungle. Instead, she found her rifle, field-stripped and checked it carefully. Then, finding the sharpest stone she could, she began to whittle away at it, slowly and patiently. As she did, a distant sound reached her eyes. The sound of singing. It would have been a lie to say that the singer was good. She was unskilled and hesitant and had no technical skill to speak of. But this wasn't a song for others. It was sung for someone else to hear, and solely for the singer to say. Kalimir returned not long after, a little red-faced but in good spirits. She grinned cheekily at Ruslana, though she appeared a bit perplexed at the other girl's ashen-faced focus as she attached an incredibly jagged green stone to the stock of her rifle.
"Something spook you? You look like you've been through the ringer." "I had some bad dreams,"
Ruslana conceded without elaboration.
"I'm better, now."
She didn't have to look at Kalimir's face to know that Kalimir didn't buy 1 ounce of it.
"Hey, lying doesn't help anyone."
Silence.
"It certainly doesn't help you."
Silence.
"Come on, Ruslana. Hey, so what are you doing with your thing, there?"
Finally, Ruslana ceased her stoicism and let her guard down a little bit.
"I was just thinking. There's a lot of danger out here. You have a melee weapon, and I only brought so much munition. It would be efficient to have a good melee weapon on hand, and I felt an axe would be an efficient tool as well, so..." "Yeah, but it's bladed." "And..."
Kalimir sighed in exasperation, pulling the horns of her parka over her face.
"Look. Ruslana. Do you see my sword? I mean... do you actually see it? Look closely."
Ruslana stopped tying the stone, and felt the heft of the rifle. It weighed more, but not enough to weigh her down, and just enough that it could split most anything if it were struck hard enough. Grimly satisfied, she turned to face Kalimir, who was holding her blade towards Ruslana with a frown.
"Well, it's wooden. I'm not sure what you expect me to say." "Yes. It's wooden. That's the point. Heroes don't go around looking for people to beat the tar out of. We might have to, but that's an option of last resort. If you go into a fight expecting to kill someone, what do you think is going to happen? Someone is going to die."
Ruslana turned away.
"It wouldn't be the first time. Nor would it be mine."
Kalimir replied softly. With a sigh, Ruslana placed the rifle at her feet, watching it sink into the soil.
"I just didn't expect the nightmares to follow me this far from home. Maybe I'd hoped that with this, I'd finally get some rest."
The words felt hollow when she said them, but suddenly she was talking all at once, more quickly than she had ever spoken before.
"And it all came back so suddenly, and I felt so young and stupid and righteous. And it felt righteous, and it was only afterwards that I realized there was no way to fix anything and..." Her eyes shut,
and Ruslana shook her head vigorously.
Apologies. You were singing earlier, and I couldn't help but hear it. None? Aha, you heard that? Ah, sheesh.
Kalimir whistled tunelessly and put her hands behind her neck.
That wasn't what actually woke you up, was it? I know I'm kind of off tune, it's just sometimes I like to try singing, you know. Keeps my mind off things. It wasn't too bad, actually, though I couldn't make out the words.
Ruslana managed to smile, and after a moment it even felt natural. Kalimir sat next to her, still looking a little embarrassed, but far less concerned.
The princess taught it to me. Said it was a song for heroes. Even when I'm not 100% sure that I'm a hero, I think of her saying that, and I feel a bit more confident. We all need little things to keep us going, right?
Ruslana cast a look towards her rifle, and frowned.
Yeah. I guess we do. Hey, well, no use getting hung up about it. You know what we should do? Get going. The mountains won't climb themselves. Honestly, I was going to wait around for this mysterious friend of yours, but I'll just carve a message here so they'll know we were here, and where we're going. Not a bad idea, right?
Whistling, Kalimir threw her wooden blade into her hand, and with no effort at all, cut into a nearby tree.
How?
Though it was a question, Ruslana couldn't quite state it as such, unable to stop staring as Kalimir shrugged and placed her sword back into its sheath.
Dunno. Guess I'm just strong or something. HCK. Although my nose is really killing me right now, I really wish we had something softer than lichen around here.
Shaking her head and trying to fight off her thunderstruck admiration, Ruslana dug around in her duffel for a while, before producing several of the synthetic cloth rags they had been issued for various field purposes.
Take one and keep it. You seem to have the worst allergies of anyone I've ever met, Kalimir.
Kalimir took one and blew into it gratefully, frowning at the copious amount of blood now staining it.
Whoa, that is messed up. I suppose I could leave this as a warning, too. It'd certainly get someone's attention. No? I'll hold on to it then. Thanks.
Laughing, Kalimir grabbed her provisions and began to move. It took Ruslana a few moments to catch up. As before, it wasn't that Kalimir moved especially quickly, and yet, she was always a step ahead. The path was mountainous and rocky, and soon they were out of the jungle entirely, rising above it on a hill incline so steep that it threatened to send one or both of the two women tumbling down. Ruslana found herself using her new axe as a piton more than once, as Kalimir insisted on taking the most daring shortcuts, the most difficult climbs, and it was beyond Ruslana to refuse. For soon, they had made it perhaps halfway up the grainy and quartz-like rose surface of the trail, and Kalimir had stopped to take in the view. And what a view it was! Around them, clouds that were stained an equal flush array of pinks and oranges from the light of the suns rolled over them and just obscured the vast array of lands below. Ruslana could make out rivers, hills, and even settlements. She couldn't help it. The smile spread too quickly, and too wide. So somehow, even here, people had found a way to survive, perhaps even thrive. The thought refused to be refused, and with it came an assurance that, whatever happened to the world she had come from, there were people here. And if there were people here, there were people to protect, and to serve.
Climbing does the body good, right? Though, I've gotta say, I thought this mountain was a bit smaller the last time I climbed it. The last time? Yeah. It was under attack by boulder-throwing giants or something. I defeated their leader in single combat, and he agreed to throw less boulders and throw more parties.
Kalimir cracked a half-smile.
Anyway, it seems we've gotten lucky. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty sure I can tell an evil castle when I see one, and that, right there, looks like an evil castle.
Ruslana had to agree. The spires that rose above them in the distance cast long shadows, and blocked out the simplest path further up the mountainside, leaving the choice between climbing to the mountain summit and going down, or attempting to navigate a slim passageway in the rock face and then brave the castle itself. And who would make the choice of climbing a summit solely when they wanted to reach the other side of a mountain? Motioning towards the crevasse in the cliffside, Kalimir and Ruslana made their way through it, carefully. Ruslana noted that the passage was filled with zigzagging shards of what could have been iron, or a metal like iron. Pausing, she picked up a small stone from the ground and threw it at one. The stone touched a spike, withered, and fell to the ground, shivering.
Dark magic!
Kalimir spat, glaring.
Stones don't normally shiver where I'm from either,
was Ruslana's response. Past the chasm rose a castle, and it would not have been remiss to call the castle evil. Everything about it screamed villainy, from the similarly sharp spikes littering the walls, the roof, the empty moat, and the doorway, to the oddly hideous color palette of barf yellow and chewed spinach green that it had been painted, or somehow colored, for the paint seemed to fall off the walls and towards the ground, bubbling occasionally. Making a face, Kalimir gestured towards the goop.
Probably a fiendish trap, but you never know. The sort of person who builds a castle over a perfectly good mountain path isn't usually too concerned about the safety of others. I'm going to scale the walls. Wait up.
Ruslana didn't have time to argue, as Kalimir made a determined leap from the ground to the side of the wall, repelling off of it to the roof. The horns of her hood flapped from side to side as the hero surveyed the area, a confused look on her face. She yelled something into the wind that was picking up, and Ruslana tried to yell back that she couldn't hear anything. A few moments later, Kalimir bounded back down, short of breath and bleeding heavily from a few cuts near her nose.
You should really take it easy. That was impressive, but maybe some of that stuff got into an open wound.
Brushing off Ruslana's concern with a devil-may-care grin, Kalimir followed suit by brushing the blood off of her face.
I'm fine. It's weird, though. There wasn't anyone up there. No bad-time buddies, no monsters, no freakish traps, just a bunch of skeletons. The non-mobile kind. Also, the goop is just particularly gross quick-dry paint.
The two dropped into the moat, or what had once been a moat. It was now quite dry, if ever it had been filled, and was filled with the soft crunch of bone, mostly those of small animals that had fallen into ravine and been unable to dig or climb out. Ruslana tried to study the skeletons as they passed, some of which looked nothing like the animals she had read about in Mandate history. A hole in the basin of the castle served as a convenient entryway, and the two girls let themselves in. Kalimir had her wooden sword out and advanced cautiously, always taking care to stand in front of Ruslana despite her companion's obvious preparedness. The hero was brave, but not careless, occasionally throwing a pebble or small stone down one of the many dark passageways that seemed to fill the unadorned and uninhabited keep. But nothing ever jumped out at them, none of the gossamer gilded dishes in the kitchen came to life, nor any of the skeletons thrown about in what looked as if it had been a council room of some kind. The place was dead, and had been for as long as it had existed. Finally, they reached what had once been a throne room of some kind, a hole in the backmost wall of which ruined the grand ostentation of the once splendid room, as had years of looting and disrepair. Ruslana couldn't help herself and sat in one of the thrones, grinning foolishly.
Guess I'm an autocrat, now. You still want to be a knight, Kaylee? I'll pass, thank you kindly. Though I'd hope you would rule over a better kingdom than this.
Kalimir laughed in reply, but was staring with poorly concealed pity at the ruins of several skeletons, some far smaller than the rest. Stepping off the throne and doing her best to hide pangs of self-dislike, Ruslana placed her hand on the hero's shoulder.
It's been like this for a long time. Whatever happened, it's clearly far in the past. Ah, but that is where you would be wrong.
The speaker was ancient, and defied place or location. Ruslana could feel her ears threatening to burst at the raw unpleasantness of his voice, which slithered like thunder into her ears and caused the blood to well up against her skin, like it might explode at any time, in a brilliant crimson mist. Before them was a figure so broken with time and age, it was impossible to tell if he might have once been alive. His flesh was a cracked red, burnished and hardened against altered bone. He clutched a staff tightly in his right hand, and between his bony fingers it crackled in and out of multiple realities, searching for something he did not yet have. Kalimir fell into a fighting stance, her face clouded with an unshakable rage.
Grendolf! What have you done with Gladii? Is it the one who so wounded me before? Forgive me, for I no longer have eyes to see. Ah! Young Kalimir! How it is a pleasure! Your princess is perfectly safe, I'm afraid. How very disappointing, I am sure.
The apparition laughed soundlessly as Kalimir's wooden blade, burning with a vengeful white light, tore through it, harmlessly.
Oh, vengeful girl! You could stand to learn some proper decorum, no. I simply found a fortress in all the dimensions I knew you would investigate, and placed it in your path after having used that dolt of a queen to spread the rumor that her darling daughter was missing. You've taken something from me, you see, and I plan to take it back tenfold.
Despite the futility of it, Kalimir continued to slash at Grendolf's illusion, even as the walls around them began to sizzle and distort, their illusions giving way to cavernous nests, filled with strange shapes that looked on hungrily from the darkness.
First, I shall still your troublesome tongue, and then I shall still your heart, O cursed wretch! But that may come later, my servants should provide ample amusement for now. You will know me as the new year falls. Grow infirm, grow weak, beg for life, and die, hero. It matters not to me.
And with a ghastly laugh that finally caused the blood to gush from Ruslana's ears, the apparition vanished in a crackle of unlight. Despite her head ringing, however, it was nothing compared to the sting of a flashbang. The retort of the rifle destroyed the tatters of laughter still hanging around the once castle, its shell tearing through one of the bloated serpents crawling towards them on myriad thin legs. Inky green blood spurted from the wound, and the beast was no more. But there were more, of course, and the serpents were hungry. Their fangs glistened as they struck, but even as body after body flung itself toward the two, Kalimir cut them down. Finally, the two stood near a mound of serpentine bodies, some still writhing in the throes of death, and the mountain, once more without castle nor disturbance, grew silent once again. Kalimir was leaning against her sword and breathing raggedly, blood streaming from her nose. Ruslana tried to think of what the right thing to say was, and realized she didn't know.
Good fighting, hero.
She settled on stoically, wishing all the while she could say something more.
Don't. Aha. Mention it. I just need a moment.
Trailing off, Kalimir began to rock back and forth, eyes closed. Finally, the bleeding stopped and she regained some semblance of her earlier confidence.
That Grendolf can't even fight us himself, the coward. At least Gladys is safe. But she won't be. No one will be, as long as that creep is still alive. Unalive. Undead. Arg.
Resuming their walk down the mountainside, Ruslana quietly moved to support Kalimir against her shoulder. The hero said nothing, but the relief as she leaned against her companion was obvious.
I can tell the two of you have quite the history. I take it he's something of an important target. Ancient beyond reckoning, and more evil even than that. He's been monstrous since before I was born, or even before anyone I've met. I almost had him, but he fled to some sort of pocket dimension. I managed to seal away some of his most powerful magic, however. He's too cautious and devoted to his own eternal life to throw that away readily. He'll wait for opportunities to ambush us, the coward. We'll be ready for him. Tyrants and abominations alike, he's just one man, and we have a saying where I'm from, one man, one bullet.
And it had been so effective there, Ruslana's subconscious lashed out at her. Kalimir, however, seemed a little lighter on her feet.
Thanks. Thank you. I really don't want to go toe-to-toe with that guy on my own again. It was a close thing, and hey, so that trick you did with your crossbow thing. It was impressive. I'm not really a fan of ranged weapons, but it sure came in handy.
Blushing slightly, Ruslana shook her head.
Oh, that's not really much of anything. It's pretty standard where I'm from, actually. I'm more impressed by the fact you managed to bisect so many of those demon serpents with just your blade.
Your wooden blade, her subconscious added helpfully.
This baby has a lot of enchantments piled on it, but the truth of it? All my strength comes from the heart, Lana. And I was worried for a bit, that maybe you were doubting yours, or in a bad place, but I can tell for sure, that you've got a good heart, too.
Kalimir flashed a huge, if not slightly bloodied, grin at her, and Ruslana couldn't help but return it.
It's easier to know right from wrong when you've got a friend to rely on, Calimere. Thank you.
Still smiling, Calimere eased off of Ruslana's shoulder and peered around the small of the mountain they'd come to. The ground was not hard here, more hill and then steep, and lined with a green and swamp-like lichen that sunk quietly as it was trod on. Strange trees that grew diagonally towards the sky rose over them, their wood a grandiose blue.
Hey, and this looks like the perfect spot for a permanent fort. Defensible, calm, pretty. That's all the important stuff in my book. What do you think, Lana?
Ruslana flashed a grin as her reply.
Sounds perfect to me. But one thing, hero. You're getting some rest while I chop a few of these down. I can probably get a shell over us by nightfall, if I work fast.
Calimere looked like she wanted to complain, but gave a good-natured shrug and lay against one of the diagonal trees.
Yeah, thanks. That'd be good, actually. We're getting near the season of storms, which means if we don't get a roof over our heads soon, it's going to be seriously drenched-tastic here. I don't mind the weather, but traveling during the season is rough. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure I saw a town from the peak. If it's populated, I'd rather spend the season getting information than trekking through the wilderness.
The heft of her makeshift axe was as good as Ruslana had hoped, and the blade even sharper than planned. The blue trees fell soundlessly, which was unnerving to contemplate. They stretched in every direction, and the last thing Ruslana wanted was to be crushed by a quietly collapsing tree. But they were also beautiful, and she wanted to memorize them, every branch and every twig, the snap of their bark and the glisten of transparent blue sap. There was nothing back home like this, and there likely never would be. Ruslana carved a notch into the soil where she had felled the first tree, and buried a half-visible chunk of wood into the earth.
What's that for?
Calimere asked quietly, her voice finally hit with the delayed pains and exhaustions she had pretended not to have. Ruslana began sheepishly, running a hand against her shaved head.
I was thinking I'd plant a tree for everyone I cut down. You know. Someone else might come through here in a few years or whatever and need wood for a shelter or something. You're just soft on nature, right? That's pretty heroic.
Calimere coughed, and they both winced at how ragged it sounded.
Don't cough up a lung, hero. There's no way I'm facing that target on my own, and besides, you've got a princess waiting for you.
The two laughed, and soon had a hastily constructed plank roof over their heads, and a kettle of what Ruslana promised was decent enough food combining over a small fire.
Honestly, if we reach town and it's populated, I wouldn't mind a chance to cook for you. It's not something I've had the chance to do very often outside of field purposes.
Calimere opened one eyelid, already half asleep.
You're a cook, as well. Out of necessity, but I also enjoy it. It's one of those things that you forget about, until you realize you don't have the time to remember it anymore. I just figured. Maybe sometime.
Ruslana sighed, and stared at the now peacefully slumbering Calimere. Taking the synth cloth blanket from her duffel, she draped it over the hero with a tender smile. Now alone, Ruslana stared into the sky pensively, listening to the gentle snores of her companion and the quiet rain breaking overhead, but soon the rain began to grow in timber, pattering against the plank roof until the latter threatened to burst into so many blue splinters. Ruslana hesitated for a moment, but the wood held, drinking the falling torrent into itself hungrily. Around them, the lichen recoiled from the deluge, and she realized she had no idea what her next objective was. That being, Grendolf, it was a danger. Not just to Calimere, her friend, Calimere, but to a lot of people. That made taking him out priority number one. And then what? Her subconsciousness asked again, unwanted and unbidden.
I don't know.
But it was your choice that brought him here. What would have happened if you had chosen someone else? Grinding her teeth against one another, Ruslana watched the rain fall and tried to fall asleep. But sleep wouldn't find her. Only unpleasant waking dreams that mocked the sense of safety she was trying to build, laughing uproariously at the fact that she had managed to bring bloodshed with her, even without trying. As the world faded into the darkness of her closed eyes, Ruslana heard her mother talking about how they'd secure things for future peace, and how it all depended on their being people, safe and removed from the world that was. But what if there was no world to come back to? Finally yielding to exhaustion, Ruslana closed her eyes and slept, the sound of the falling rain lulling her into something resembling security. And the rain continued to fall, until even the sound of the fire couldn't be heard. Only the sound of the rain, digging into the ground and wearing away the bark of trees into blanched skeletons of their former selves. Chapter end.